As of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord and the draconian financial and economic burdens the agreement imposes on our country.
President Trump took tremendous flack for this decision, despite the fact the move was made to protect American taxpayers, energy companies, and industries. On this episode of PMPK, I will quickly break down 3 essential reasons why the president was justified in his decision. I'm Bailee Byers, and you're watching episode 13 of Promises Made, Promises Kept. President Trump made it clear as he campaigned for the White House he would stop at nothing to ensure the U.S. would withdraw from the disastrous climate deal, otherwise known as the Paris Accord. He dubbed the agreement as one categorized by draconian and burdensome principles, one of which would take a toll on American industries and taxpayers. Take a look.
The Paris Climate Accord is simply the latest example of Washington entering into an agreement that disadvantages the United States to the exclusive benefit of other countries, leaving American workers, who I love, and taxpayers to absorb the cost in terms of lost jobs, lower wages, shuttered factories, and vastly diminished economic production.
The Paris Climate Accord was signed in December of 2015 with the ultimate goal of reducing global greenhouse gas emissions and global warming. There were a total of 175 parties initially involved in the international pact, and a majority of the current partakers have ratified the agreement. The Paris Accord mandates each nation involved submit nationally determined contributions, otherwise known as NDCs, every 5 years. Those NDCs would outline each nation's pledge in terms of emissions and climate-related goals overall, which are non-binding and voluntary. It is important to note that although the president announced his intention of leaving the pact, the soonest time documents can be filed for withdrawal would be on November 4th, 2019. Assuming the Trump administration follows this timeline, there's another year waiting period to officially withdraw as a party member, which would not allow official withdrawal from the pact until November 4th, 2020. Make no mistake, even though the U.S. is still technically a party member to the Paris Accord, President Trump has still reinstated the American First agenda within the international arena. Now, let's explore a brief overview of the NDCs to provide some more context for the withdrawal. The United States, China, India, and the European Union as a whole have been the top CO2 emitters in recent years. China has surpassed all other nations as the world's top emitter, while the US comes in second, followed by both India and the EU. In signing the Paris Accord, the US pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 26 to 28% by 2025. China, on the other hand, has committed to reducing carbon intensity by 60 to 65% by 2030, while also pledging to increase its renewable energy sources to 20% by the year 2030. Beijing also vowed to increase the carbon stock volume by planting trees around the country by 4.5 billion cubic meters. The nation also aims to peak its CO2 emissions by 2030. Although many experts claim Beijing is on track to reach its goals, research suggests the NDCs may not be ambitious enough.
Under the agreement, China will be able to increase these emissions by a staggering number of years, 13. They can do whatever they want for 13 years, not us.
Although many experts claim China's on track to meet its Paris Accord commitments, President Trump has repeatedly questioned its fairness overall. The president was likely referring to China's NDCs. Now, let's take a look at how Beijing fulfilling those commitments may not necessarily have a large impact on the goals of the agreement. There is no denying without having the Chinese on board in reducing emissions, serious greenhouse gas reductions globally would be nearly impossible. According to the Climate Action Tracker, China's self-determined pledges have been rated highly insufficient. More simply stated, even if every single goal is reached, it would not align with the Paris Accord's goal of reducing global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Furthermore, if the world followed suit, global warming would be measured at around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius annually. According to BP's annual report, China is responsible for nearly 1/4 of all energy consumption around the world, with coal and other fossil fuels being critical staples of its otherwise growing economy. Coal remained the dominant fuel in 2018, growing at a rate of almost 5% to satisfy the ongoing industrial boom. The data indicates China's CO2 emissions spiked 2.2% in 2018, and coal use spiked around 1%. CO2 emissions actually spiked 4% in the first quarter alone of 2018, which can be largely attributed to the surge in the power sector. Despite the fact CO2 emissions and Beijing's coal use decreased between 2013 and 2016, the government's stimulus package has reignited the economy and is potentially setting the stage for what experts have called a climate setback. But another issue took center stage over the debate within the deal, the idea that it takes advantage of American taxpayers. Cue the Green Climate Fund. This is a fund that was created before the Paris Accord with the goal of subsidizing renewable energy programs in developing nations. Take a look.
The Green Fund would likely obligate the United States to commit potentially tens of billions of dollars, of which the United States has already handed over $1 billion. Nobody else is even close. Most of them haven't even paid anything, including funds raided out of America's budget for the war against terrorism.
President Trump wasn't kidding when he cited protecting American taxpayers as grounds for withdrawing from the Paris Accord. The fund aims to raise $100 billion by the year 2020 to send abroad to foster renewable energy programs in developing countries. Former President Barack Obama sent $1 billion to the fund in the form of two $500 million payments, but without a congressional stamp of approval. Overall, the Obama administration pledged $3 billion to the fund, but President Trump made it clear during the campaign he would not send additional hard-earned American money abroad. Another noteworthy distinction is that a majority of the recipient nations have been categorized as some of the world's most corrupt governments. Some of those nations include Indonesia, Brazil, Egypt, Kenya, and Thailand. Without confident transparency, it remains unclear if the funds derived from the GCF will actually serve the purpose initially designed. The third issue with the Accord is one which is not normally addressed: the idea that there's a serious gap between NDC goals and national policy implementation. According to a recent study, only 16 of the nations had laws or policies in place that were at least as or more ambitious to meet their NDC goals. Some of those countries include Canada, Algeria, Ethiopia, Norway, Peru, Samoa, and Singapore. On the other hand, a whopping 139 nations do not have laws and policies which mandate economy-wide targets. Essentially, this means although those nations have pledged to meet certain goals, they have not taken action to instate policies and laws which are consistent with their NDCs. That being said, it also makes it even more difficult to track potential progress, if there is any, regarding the goals set in place. While many argue setting ambitious climate goals is a step in the right direction, without the proper policy implementation, it makes it nearly impossible to reach the goals and track potential progress. Thanks for watching. Right Side Broadcasting runs on your donations and your support. If you're interested in donating, you can do that through the YouTube Super Chat at the bottom of your screen, PayPal, Patreon, or rsbnetwork.com/donate. To learn more about Promises Made and Promises Kept, check out www.promiseskept.com.